All right, everybody, it's 7 o'clock now, and I'd like to say welcome to everyone. We have in Bolton a long history of town meetings and have a public hearing before a lot of our decisions are made that are will be affected, certainly in this case, by an ordinance. So at this time, I open the the public hearing, and I'm going to ask Jim to please read the notice.
Well, I don't have the actual notice. I have the, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, January 4th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom to hear public comment on the marijuana and alcohol ordinance. Copies of the above ordinance are available for public inspection at the office of the town clerk, Bolton Town Hall during normal business hours.
Thank you. And I see in our Zoom meeting that all of the selectmen are present, so thank you for coming this evening for the first part as well. And at this time, I will open the public hearing and ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. If someone has already said something that you agree with, please feel free to mention you're in concurrence. But let's try and keep our watch of our time and keep our thoughts concise, and it would be greatly appreciated by all. Is there anyone who would like to step forward for the public hearing and speak first on this ordinance?
Mr. Anderson.
Bill Anderson, did you want to speak?
Certainly, yeah. William Anderson, 77 French Road. So I read the ordinance, and it gives the appearance that there are properties in town that you can smoke marijuana and drink alcohol on. And I don't think that's the intent. I mean, it says there'll be a list maintained by the Board of Selectmen, and other properties will be added to the list at future dates. Does it have to be that complicated? I mean, can't it just say no alcohol, no smoking marijuana on town property, and then just leave it alone at that?
Thank you. So noted. Is there anyone else who would, is there anything else you'd like to add, Bill?
No, it was just a question, just the way it's worded and written. It just seems kind of open, like there's places to drink and smoke pot in town.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Christopher Davies? Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Chris Davey, 21 Mount Sumner Drive. In looking over the ordinance, I got the impression that it does two things. One, that it bans consumption of marijuana anywhere on any town property, and that it bans the drinking or possession of alcohol on some town properties, but not necessarily all town properties. I think that gets to Mr. Anderson's point that it seems to indicate that the selectmen will determine where alcohol can be consumed or not. I guess my general comment is I would encourage the board to either go one way or the other. I don't really understand why alcohol and cannabis are being treated differently. Either ban both in all locations or allow both in all locations. I don't really understand the rationale behind discriminating against one over the other. So I would encourage you to take another look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I do have a reason if you'd like me to share that.
Jim, please go ahead.
So the reason that Chris, your impression of the document is correct. And the reason that alcohol is not banned on all town properties is because we do, with an appropriate rider on insurance, allow people to have alcohol at the Herrick Park facility when they provide the appropriate documentation and is approved by the Board of Selectmen. That is why it is treated slightly differently. I hope that helps with some clarification.
And Arlene might back me up on this, but there was also approval when we had the reenactment and they had mead as part of a ceremony at the reenactment, which it was an alcoholic property, and had approval for it in 2011. Is there someone else who'd like to step forward and speak on the marijuana and alcohol ordinance as proposed?
Yes,
Rodney Fournier?
yes, yes. So I'm flashing, is that, do the state properties fall in line with the town properties? So whatever ordinance we put in place, does it follow on state properties? So is it just like Gay City or on, of course, Gay City's not in Bolton, is it?
Part of Gay City State Park is in Bolton, but that is managed under the state system.
So would the rules follow there as well? Whatever we put in place?
Yeah, I don't believe they would.
That is not, thank you, Adam. Anybody else would like to address that? Bob
Well,
Moore?
this is specifically designed for town property, period. State, a lot of the state property, look at Bolton Lake, part of that, the launch and all that. DEP controls that deep, and it's their regulations that control that, not ours. So other state properties, such as the rails to trails and all that, same issue.
So you could possess marijuana on the state trails and so forth, and depending on the state rules.
Depending on state rules, correct.
Okay, very good. So we're not talking about everything here.
No, very specific.
Okay, thank you.
If you go on the town website and you go into the Selectmen, you can find the ordinance written under the public hearing, and you can read it where it says, in any town building or on town property, including but not limited to, and then there's a description. So it's very clear about town property, not personal property and not state property.
Which would mean properties that the town invested in, but the state bought.
If we had grants in purchasing that property, that doesn't count. We own it.
Oh, okay, all right.
They do not, they do not have a say in that component.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Adam?
I have a couple of questions for the town administrator, if we could. Jim, has there been a specific issue with marijuana on any town property? And if so, what is that issue and what was the genesis of this ordinance? If you know, you may not.
So I can't tell you that we did investigate whether or not there had been any issues, and we do know that there are some ongoing issues at, in particular, Indian Notch Park, both with alcohol and with marijuana. This has been a policy up until, the alcohol piece of this has been a policy up until this point. The Board of Selectmen, in its iteration previous to the November election, had gone over this on 2 or 3 separate meetings. It's been reviewed by the town attorney. And this is what's come out of it. And it is specifically designed to deal with some issues that we have had. And the information that we got back from the town attorney was, if we wanted to have any enforceability and any teeth, it should be an ordinance rather than a policy.
I agree with that sentiment, but I guess my first question is about this draft of the ordinances.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my question was, had we had an issue, and if there are specific issues, I'd like to know what they were.
Sure, I can speak to that, since this has been an ongoing issue even back when I was first selectman, and primarily at Indian Notch Park. we even had at times would have the state police with a canine walking the area because of marijuana use to eliminate. That
Okay,
was
is that before or after marijuana possession and use became
No,
generally
that's
legal
when
in
it
the
was
state of
illegal.
Connecticut?
That was,
Okay,
that's
so that's,
when it was illegal.
I'm,
So when you start off at that point, obviously now that it is legal, you know, the gates have been open unless you have a regulation. We did have the non-smoking, so we always enforce that. And before it was illegal, illegal was illegal. So we would use the state police to enforce that component. But here now, this is an ordinance, but what we're like, particularly in that's the main area, because there are so many people confined in that area, and we try and control it. Just trying to bring us up to date to our current laws, which basically allow you to possess it. However, we have so many families that use that beach, particularly, certainly are not comfortable with somebody, smoking pot in their presence. I mean, obviously, if you've been to any concert any close to it, you can smell it a mile away. And I think it's part of my feeling, this personal part of my feeling is, I think we have a duty to our citizens to say, you know what? Yeah, you can do it. Go ahead. You do it wherever, but there are certain places where you can't do it. And these certain places are where our families and are allowed to get together. And we wouldn't allow it in a school. Why should we allow it in a recreational area or like a town gazebo area when we have concerts there? That's pretty much the concept.
Adam, did you have a second question?
well, my second question is this list that's going to be maintained in the office of the selectmen as to areas where alcohol is not going to be allowed. Where is that list and how does the public know about it? Do they have to actually go into the office of the selectmen and ask, or is it posted somewhere? Because I have a problem with having $100 penalty that somebody could get stopped by an officer and have to go to court for a list that's sort of may or may not be generally available to the public. It's not the way an ordinance should be drafted in my view, but I'd like to know how people know because this only prohibits alcohol on beaches. I have no problem prohibiting alcohol on beaches or prohibiting glass containers on beaches with some specific position. But if you're going to extend it to anywhere else, how do people know that?
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to say to the selectmen, if you have more to add, we can hold off on your comments back and forth because we can get to each other. Let's hear from the public if there's more that want to address the ordinance from the public. Bill Anderson, you have your hand up again, but let's see if there's anybody else before we come back to you. Amanda Gordon, would you like to weigh in?
Thanks, Pam. I just had a question. Based on my reading, it seems to me that the $100 violation is only for marijuana use, not if someone is caught using alcohol on a property where it's not allowed. So I'd ask for a clarification on if that reading is correct. And then, do we allow smoking of cigarettes in public on town property, outdoor town properties? I would ask that question.
Do we have an answer to that one? That's a good question, Amanda. We'll write it down and we'll get an answer for you. This, I must admit, this ordinance came from the prior administration, so I don't have a deep background on some of the prior history. Thank you very much. We'll look that one up. Do we have anyone else who'd like to address the ordinance? We have a phone number.
I think they were just moving.
Just moving, okay. So I would go back to the selectmen then if we don't have anybody else at the present time. Bob Moore, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
You're muted.
There you go. Now I'm clear. No, I think there are some points that were brought up that probably are going to require a little more discussion before we finalize what we have here. I think Adam's got a couple of questions that I think we should fully discuss and go forward on it.
And would you like to respond, sir? You're muted, Adam. Could you unmute for a moment?
Sorry about that. I did have one other thing I wanted to point out, and again, I'm not satisfied at all with the drafting of this version, whatever the underlying intent was. My concern in this regard is that we have a statute that allows medical use of marijuana, and the statute specifically prohibits any penalties to be applied to the possession or use of medical marijuana, except under certain limited situations, which do not exactly correspond with this. So the possession of marijuana can't be prohibited, as I understand it, of medical marijuana by somebody with a medical marijuana card can't be prohibited, and this ordinance doesn't allow an exception for that. So potentially you're imposing a $100 fine on somebody for mere possession of medical marijuana when you don't have the authority to do that by ordinance. Only the legislature can do that under that statute. So there's a problem with this iteration or this version of this ordinance. I also think Ms. Gordon's point is very well taken. It's not clear to me what the penalty is for possession of alcohol or drinking of alcohol on a town beach under this ordinance. And if the selectman does have a list that prohibits that in other places, it's not clear to me that there's any penalty for violation of that list, because I don't see how the selectman can modify an ordinance that has to be subject to a public hearing and printed in the town ordinance book. Once it's printed that way, the selectmen can't alter it by creating a list or altering a list. They have to have another public hearing about that list. That's the whole reason that we have this procedure for creating ordinances. So maybe the town attorney can explain those issues to me, but I'm sad to say I probably should have raised this when we set this public hearing, but I hadn't had time, having just joined the board, to address this. I would personally not be comfortable approving an ordinance in this form, and I don't intend to do so. I also think that Mr. Davey is very correct that you should treat alcohol and marijuana the same. They're not any different anymore, according to our legislature. Their use in public places does create problems and should be restricted or monitored, but their possession is different from their use, and their use in noxious ways should always be regulated. So those are different things to me, possession and use. And I think we should make a clear distinction between that. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the issue? Any of the callers that have that are in by a phone number, would you like to say anything? Thank you. Hey, Paula Lynn, would you like to address the public hearing? If so, you need to unmute yourself. Okay, I guess not. Very good. All right, then at this time.
I'm sorry. I just had trouble unmuting myself there. Yeah, I just joined as part of the Heritage Farm Commission.
Okay, well, we'll get back to you in a few minutes when we get on to the Selectmen's meeting at 7:30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, if there's no other comments, then at this time, I will close the public hearing and say thank you all for joining for the public hearing. If you feel free to stay on for the meeting of the Board of Selectmen, which will begin at 7:30. So at this time, we will take a recess, a break for 10 minutes.
And thank you, everybody. Great comments. And I think, you know, when this ordinance is finally finalized, all of those comments will certainly make this much better.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. This is the regular meeting of the Bolton Selectmen, beginning at 7:30 p.m. And at this time, for the call to order, I would also like to ask if you would please salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to move to the public comment. We have guests that have joined us. It looks like this evening for comments. And at this time, I would address those people who are here in person first, if they would like to speak.
Hi, I'm John Toomey of 45 Hebron Road. I'm here to discuss some things about the proposal of a cemetery committee or commission, whatever you're going to want to call it. Having been on the Bolton Cemetery Association since 1998 until it expired as a nonprofit here in Bolton in 2011, and we turned everything over to the town based on the vote of the membership at that time. We just wanted to make sure that one, money's been accounted for, and I know it's been part of the budget. We want to ensure that should there be a committee or a commission of Bolton citizens, that they actually be people who have purchased a plot in one of the two Bolton cemeteries. And that was always the criteria for the Cemetery Association from 1912 until it disbanded in 2011. I think people should have a vested interest in the maintenance of the cemeteries, Bolton Center and the Quarryville Cemetery up on Route 44. Is there anything else you want to mention? Because we just want to make sure that it's handled by people who have a vested interest. I think it'll be great if you have town staff taking care of it. If you totally turn it over to an internal part of the town's government, that would be one thing. But if you're planning on a committee or a commission, we'd like to see it kept the same way, where people who have a vested interest in their own family's plots or their own future plots.
Thank you, John. Carl Price, former first selectman.
Well, please don't use that title on me. Carl Price, Brandy Street. Just to give a little history about the cemeteries, there was some discussion in the past about the who actually oversees the cemetery here in town. Back in the early 1900s, before the Cemetery Association was founded, there were town-owned cemeteries, and it was deeded to the Cemetery Association in the early 1900s. Then for the next 100 years or so, the Cemetery Association, as John said, was comprised of anyone who owned or whose family owned a plot in the cemetery. Shortly before the Cemetery Association turned the funds and the control of the cemeteries over to the town, we did have a trial period where the town Parks Department mowed the cemeteries for about 2 years. And at that time with John Butramovich, who was the in charge of the buildings and grounds, he didn't feel he had the staff or the equipment and able to do an adequate job. So we did hire someone to maintain the cemeteries. Prior to that, my uncle and John's uncle dug the graves, and when he retired, I got involved with the maintenance of the cemetery, and I was sexton for probably 20 years or so. But as John said, there's a considerable concern about who would have a vested interest in seeing the cemeteries and making sure that they were kept and maintained to an adequate standard. So that's what we would like to ensure.
Thank you.
And
John?
and also we know there's been problems at the cemetery for quite a good long time regarding just the way the landscape work is done, with the problems of things being mowed over. But the one thing that I've noticed, especially in the particular deed that I have for my cemetery plot, it specifically states that no one should put any decorations or anything on the graves. Flower pots are one thing, but the one thing is there's so much to go around with the mowers, with the trimmers. That's creating a lot of problems, and it's taking more time, and it seems to be making it worse. And people grieve differently nowadays than they used to. And I don't know what other cemeteries have for their rules and regulations about the grave sites, but having an antique business that we drive around the state of Connecticut on the byways, little country roads, and we constantly are seeing small cemeteries, and the only thing you see are the flags at veterans' graves and an occasional flower pot. You don't see all of the other paraphernalia and ephemera stuff that's scattered around on the graves, and that's created part of the problem of maintenance on the grave. And the other problem, the cemetery is directly across from the highest point, one of the highest points in Bolton Center, and of course water goes downhill. And I didn't realize how bad it was. I was talking until I talked to the sexton that's maintaining it, and what she told me was the water flow down the hill is horrendous. And we didn't think much of it until one day, being that I live across from the cemetery, we heard a loud machine going. We figured, why would there be a loud machine? That's not a grave digger. And we went upstairs, looked out the window, and we saw the staff pumping water out of a grave along the driveway, about midway in the cemetery. And it was like a fire hydrant had been opened with the amount of water that was coming out of that grave. And that made me realize just what she was talking about, on how difficult that water constantly coming downhill is disturbing the ground anyway, which makes the stones look funny and keeps moving them, which makes it harder to mow and weed whack.
To share with those people who have joined us online at the last Selectmen's meeting, or I believe, we approved the contract, a dual contract, one for the landscape and maintenance and one for the sexton services. So they're two different companies that will be helping us with taking care of it. We did look into the money that is available in the town budget, and there's $805,000. So the money has carefully been managed from what it appears from the research that was given to me.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps you out.
Yeah, and I think 10 years ago with Incard, didn't you say we turned over $1 million roughly?
Close to it.
Close to $1
yes.
million back in 2011.
And we have ongoing maintenance costs and costs for the landscaping that we've used from that fund. But thank you very much. And there's still plots for those people that are interested in the Bolton Center Cemetery, and there are still a few plots left at the Quarryville Cemetery as well. And the issue of a flagpole replacement at the Quarryville Cemetery and signage and other factors at the center cemetery have been brought up. Currently, the cemetery considerations will be taken up by the Properties and Facilities Subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen at the present time. All right, thank you very much. Other people who'd like to address us for the public comment? Bill Anderson, is your hand up?
Yes, Bill Anderson, 77 French Road. So I'll be brief here. The state of Connecticut added a 5-cent environmental fee to the NIP. So that 5 cent per NIP is to be collected, and then that money will be turned back to the municipality from which the NIPs were sold twice a year. So that will start on April 1st of 2022. In the legislation, it states that that money can be used, including but not limited to, and they give a couple examples. So they've left it pretty much wide open what we can do with the money. What I would recommend is that we, I don't know if an ordinance would be necessary, but if we had a policy where twice a year, a fall and a spring cleanup done by volunteers in the town of Bolton to pick up not only the nips, but any other litter along the streets. And at the end of the afternoon, have a celebration at one of the local restaurants that can handle the crowd. 3J's, Villa Luisa, Georgina's, and use that money to reward people for picking up the trash that's, you know, on their own street. I think it would be a great relationship building event, and we could probably have the cleanest town in the state of Connecticut. I would like to, you know, see a little bit of that money go back to the residents in the town that have to put up with the garbage coming out of people's cars onto their front yards. So that's my suggestion. I hope you run with it. Thank you for your time.
Bill? Anybody else would like to address us at this point under public comment? Christopher Davey?
Thank you. Chris Davey, 21 Mount Sumner. I'll echo Mr. Anderson's comments. I think he had a great idea there, and would love to see the town pursue something like that. I wanted to make a plea to the Board of Selectmen to please take note of the calendar of events that appears on the town's website. And if there's any way that you can encourage town staff to be more diligent, or whoever's responsible for updating that website to be more diligent about including the times of meetings along with the dates of the meetings. For example, this evening I was wanting to participate in the public hearing on the marijuana legislation that was proposed, and I went to the town website to figure out what time the meeting was, and while the agenda was there and the meeting was listed as being tonight and the Zoom link was there, nothing told me what time the public hearing started. The time is not on the agenda, it's not on the website. I looked forward a few weeks at upcoming meetings. There are several Board of Selectmen budget workshops that are listed on the calendar, but no time is given. There's a Fire Commission meeting on January 24th with no time given. You know, things like that, I think are very inhospitable to the town's residents and anyone who might want to get involved in local government, either as a participant or just to observe. And this is an issue that I know I brought up probably 5 or 6 years ago. The website now is far better and much easier to use than it was then, but apparently we still have issues with making sure that people know what time things are going to happen. So if there's anything you could do about that, I would be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for the extra set of eyes, Chris. Who else would like to speak under public comment? Do you see anything, Jim?
I don't.
I'm trying to look carefully, make sure we don't miss anybody. Okay, then we'll move on. At this point, I'm going to ask that we move the agenda around just a little bit. We'll hold off on the approval of the minutes because we have some that need a little bit of work. And at this time, because we have our chairman of the Diversity Commission, Amanda Gordon is here. So if the board will allow me to, I would like to move 7C up to the present time, and we will address the Diversity Commission. Amanda, would you like to speak to address the board?
Sure, thank you, Selectwoman. I appreciate it. So as Pam said, my name is Amanda Gordon. I was recently selected by our inaugural Diversity Commission to be the chair for this committee. This is my first time chairing a municipal commission, so if I speak out of turn, I apologize. Please let me know. As this commission is new and it is viewed as an advisory council to the Board of Selectmen, I have spoken with Ms. Sawyer several times and just kind of, we thought it would be good if I could come on a regular basis to present to the Board of Selectmen about the work that the Diversity Commission is doing. So thus far, we've met twice with our first meeting in November and December. It is a temporary commission, and that means we're slated to terminate as of October of 2022. In our first couple meetings, we introduced ourselves to each other and then went over some relevant stats as it relates to diversity in Bolton. And I thought I would share some of the salient ones with the Board of Selectmen. So data currently shows that our Bolton population is slightly older on average than the state. Our median income in Bolton is about $30,000 more than the state median income, and our poverty rate is 5% less than the state median income. We are less racially diverse than the rest of the state. We have 1% of people who identify as Black compared to the state at 10, 2% who identify as Asian compared to the state at 4, 8% who identify as Hispanic compared to the state at 16, and we're 89% white while the state is 67% white. That said, our diversity index, which is a measure of how diverse a community is, has increased by 10 percentage points over the last decade, which means that our community as a whole is getting to be more diverse, and we are seeing that trend in our neighboring towns as well. We are more diverse than Coventry, Andover, but we are less diverse than Manchester, Vernon, which may be expected from a racial and ethnicity perspective. So at our first two meetings, we did review the resolution from the Board of Selectmen that was approved on January 4th of 2021. And the committee felt that we were all slightly unclear as to what it meant when the resolution said that the committee shall be empowered to create its own agenda as it seeks to address issues pertaining to town government and community diversity and inclusion, with the caveat that it shall be an advisory body reporting to the Board of Selectmen. And so it was unclear to us what actions we could take without the blessing of the Board of Selectmen. And so we did think that it would be best to come to the Board of Selectmen to share with you guys a couple of the ideas that we've had already with regards to where we'd like to go with the work of the Diversity Commission. I do want to say that while the Diversity Committee does bring together a group of fairly diverse people, we know that we're no way representative of the town and the diversity that Bolton has as a whole, and therefore we feel that we need to do more exploration to do two things. One, to identify what residents may wish to see as it relates to the celebration of diversity and difference in our town, and two, as it relates to what issues there may be around diversity, equity, and inclusion. While the resolution itself really does focus on issues, that word is used a couple of times, the Diversity Commission feels that being positive ambassadors for diversity and inclusion in town by providing information, education, and communication should be an important piece of the work that we do, as opposed to solely focusing on finding issues that exist. And so just kind of coming to the Board of Selectmen for your blessing to work on things that would celebrate difference and raise awareness in town. To meet these dual aims, we've come up with some broad categories of things that we'd like to potentially pursue. One of them being surveying town members. We don't have a lot of detail around this item yet, but it would probably take multiple forms and seek to target a broad swath of our population to make sure that it's representative. And some key populations that were discussed were the young people, youth, as well as seniors, as having very unique experiences from those of us who are typically really actively involved in the government. We would also need to do some exploration of existing resources, such as social media sites that already exist in the town that may bring to light some issues that we already know exist or have been raised. Potentially seeking to identify one or more youth participants who could sit on our diversity commission. There may already be a club of some type that exists at the Bolton High School that may align with this goal. The committee wants to work with the Board of Education to identify DEI issues that may already be known to the Board of Education, potentially through exploring issues of bullying to see if any of the bullying is related to diversity and inclusion issues. Planning events in town that celebrate diversity. Exploring doing something similar to the Bolton Living History Show, which I wasn't familiar with. Thank you to John Toomey for bringing that to light. I guess that was a show on CBC where local town members came and talked about their history. So the idea is that we would do something, potentially do something similar, where we allowed people to come and talk about their cultures or their diversity or their unique experiences related to how they identify as a person. Other things we talked about are doing research into DEI training that's currently required by all town employees and commission members. Is it required? How often is it required? What does the training entail? And once we're able to do kind of an assessment, see if the committee has any suggestions for improvements for the town. Potentially implement options for raising awareness about diversity in town, maybe a diversity section in the library that highlights authors from diverse backgrounds, a resource list that might include books, films, articles, stuff that is available to town residents should they wish to expand their horizons as it relates to diversity and inclusion, or maybe a voluntary book club that people could sign up for. And then the final idea that we've generated so far is potentially having a list or generating ways that we could highlight minority-owned or female-owned local businesses in some way in the community. So thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you. I do feel that this is a very important issue, so I thank you for creating this committee, and I think that we will be able to do great work. So I welcome comments, questions, feedback from Selectmen members. Thank you.
Would any selectmen have questions specifically for the chairwoman at this time?
I must say that's a whole lot to absorb in the last 3 minutes. You covered a lot of territory in a very short period of time. So I'd love to comment, but I'm kind of overwhelmed with all you've done. I have to say, you folks have done a good start getting into a whole lot of different issues. And one of the things that I don't know is that when we put this thing together, that we were particularly concerned about, you may be addressing as it is how we in government, in town government, relate to diverse issues. And I know it's a changing scene, it's a changing demographics, but I think I'm going back to the board that put this together. Our thoughts were, we want to be a part of what's going on, and as in so many cases, there are issues where people feel that we're not doing anything right and we don't know it. And I think personally, most people who end up in a situation, well, you're not dealing with this properly, surely didn't realize that was happening. And I think part of my going along with this thing is I'm one of those people. And not that I am particularly insensitive to this thing, but different generations, different mindsets. And someone in their in their 20s, I think many times really don't get it. That our life experiences have been a hell of a lot different than they are. And when you're thinking about how diversity is addressed, that should be a component.
I'd like to say thank you to Amanda being very welcoming to me to the last meeting. And I was interested because it wasn't just race diversity, it was a broad spectrum of diversity across the town. And it was very inclusive. I thought a great list, but it was so broad and had so many questions. One thing, Amanda, we had talked about, and that was the town proper and what they've done for diversity training. If you would please send an email to Jim Rupert, our town administrator. He will give you the feedback on that you can take directly back to your commission.
Thank you. And Jim did email me and let me know that you do have training, but we may have follow-up questions about what it entails. So I will certainly reach out to Jim.
Very good. And you had questions about wanting to do a survey?
That is one of the potential activities we'd like to take on, though there's not a lot of meat on that bone right now.
As you get those developed, please feel free to come. The sooner the better, because you do have a finite time, and so we can help you out on the outreach that you're looking for that.
Selectman Aramita has his hand up.
Mr. Armita?
Yeah, I'd like to just echo Bob's sentiments in the fact that last year when we began to talk about this, I was completely flabbergasted or floored that we actually needed something like this. I did not expect that we would have problems with diversity in our little community. I thought we were pretty good at it. And my eyes were open to the fact that we're not as good as I thought we were. And that's what prompted moving to this diversity committee. And I'm, you know, my whole life with my children, I taught them not to see others as different. And I thought that that's how we all were, unfortunately, here. And I'm very happy to see that you guys have hit the ground running with your expectations and your goals. And, you know, like Bob said, we kind of come from a little bit of a different generation. And, you know, the generation before us was extremely less tolerant of other individuals. And as we've moved forward, we've become a much more homogeneous society, and we have to be tolerant of each other. So, you know, if this commission puts us on the right track and helps us get better at it, I'll be very happy. And I think that this is going to be a commission that I think we should accomplish things, and then I think the commission should be around to monitor their outcome and make sure things stay as they are.
Thank you. Are there any other selectmen who would like to address Amanda? Okay, good. At this time then,
Bob DiPietro,
Bob,
do you have
I'm sorry.
something?
Sorry. Amanda, when you get a chance, I would love to know who is on your commission. Maybe a little bit about their backgrounds or something to give us a feel for what they represent.
I will say that that is one of the things at the start of each of our meetings, we did go around and discuss a little bit about ourselves and what brought us to the commission. So there is a brief introduction to everybody in the audio recordings from each of the last 2 meetings, but I'm always happy to talk to you, Bob.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Very good. And what I'm going to do then is, because Amanda's right here and listening, I'm going to quickly just jump over the Bolton Heritage Farm Commission, quickly go to the appointments 4B for the Diversity Commission. And we have in front of us a commission interest form for the Diversity and Inclusion Commission by Milton E. Ives from 101 South Road. And his statement is he believes that that diversity input on any issue or project is a key element to success. He works in manufacturing. He works with many people and believes in active inclusion. And he's a volunteer advisor for the Workforce and Organizational Research Center. Milt Ives from 101 South Road. So at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to accept Milton Ives as a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Commission. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Bob Mora, and a second,
Mike Aramita.
Mike Aramita. Thank you. Any comments?
Just one. Does anybody know Mr. Ives that could give us a little insight into who it is and what
I
he's all
do.
about?
I
Sounds
do.
like he's working in the areas that we need some information from, but go ahead.
I do. He's a neighbor. His family is from Puerto Rico, and he has a special needs child, and he has worked in business for a long time.
Good.
Bob DiPietro?
I work with Bill as an officer in the National Clubs. He has been very, very helpful and loyal and hardworking, and he's got great skills. So I highly recommend him.
Very good. Any other comments by the selectmen?
Good enough for me.
At this time, I call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? All in favor, then it has passed unanimously. Okay, Amanda, you've got one more.
There's still
Thank you.
room for more.
Absolutely.
How many do you have now? Sure, I put you on the spot. Sorry.
Yeah, we've had some come and go that were originally on there. I think we're around 10 or 11.
Really? That's a good sized commission. That's good.
It might be a little less. We definitely had some folks move out of town that had to drop off, unfortunately. But we
Very
have
good.
slots for Republicans, one slot for a Democrat, and then as many Republicans or independents for the remaining
Right.
slot.
Right, so, okay.
We'll keep looking. Okay, thank you. So at this time, I will go back to 4A, the Bolton Heritage Farm Commission. We have a commission interest form from Paula Lynn, who has actually joined us tonight from 13 Lookout Landing. She has an interest, she's a Democrat. She has an interest in the Heritage Farm Commission. And she says that she's lived in town for 35 years. She has brought her family to the Rose Farm when it was a working farm, and now has enjoyed the property as a heritage farm for hiking, snow sports, and yoga. She loves the property and that she wants to give back to the community with her participation on this board. Paula, are you still here?
I am.
Would you like to just give a little bit, a very brief synopsis of your background?
Sure. I'm recently retired. I spent about 30 to 35 years in the corporate world as a programmer and business analyst. I ended up retiring from United Health Group in July of 2020. Yeah, it's already 2022. Yeah, so and I have time now, and I want to give back to the community that has been so good to us in raising our family. So I don't know, have two children that went through the Bolton school system. They both, live in Connecticut, and I live here with my husband and on Lookout Landing, and just want to participate, help out.
Thank you for stepping forward. I have had the privilege of working with Paula on the Bolton PTA and with the Bolton Women's Club in the past, and would highly recommend her for this position on the Heritage Farm Commission. Are there any questions by the Board of Selectmen?
I'll move the appointment.
Thank you. And a second,
I'll second it.
Petro, any other comments by the Selectmen? Then I would ask for a vote then, all in favor of accepting Paula's
Aye.
interest form and as a member for the Heritage Farm Commission, please say aye.
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 We have a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. And thank you, Paula, for coming to serve. We appreciate it very much.
Yes, thank you.
All right, moving on. why don't we jump down then to the properties and facilities report? Mr. Mora, do you want to report in about the cemetery that you had
Right.
spoken?
One of the obviously we have had the changeover, and we are moving forward with it. One of the things that we wanted to do, and that was, if you're familiar with the Center Cemetery, in one corner is where a lot of the excess dirt and that equipment was stored. So one of the suggestions, and I think we should make this a bit more a permanent thing, is get a permission from the church to be able to utilize their parking lot and make a service gate at that end, so that there really isn't an area on the south part where you can really dispose of properly debris and all that issue. Right now, that area is chain link fence across, and there's basically a passageway, a doorway for personnel. I think for us, I think to consider, I would consider, if once we get an agreement with the church that would grant us the right to use their parking area there, to access it, simply not to park anything, but simply to access it at that point. I think that would be a big positive move for that cemetery. And unfortunately, this idea is very fresh in my mind, so I bring it forward tonight, but I haven't had an opportunity to even meet with John to get a cost as to, what it would do to put a gate in there. But I think we really don't have, our only entryway truly is the two entryways that currently exist in there. We really should have a service entryway, and I think the first thing we have to do is get an agreement with the church and formalize it so that we have a proper entryway to do that.
I would concur with that, and also add that I hope that the church would enjoy a better view from their portion and not be looking at this big old dirt pile and the scraps and litter that has been left behind by the prior service that is there. It's very unsightly, and I look forward to having that improved. Any of the other, Bob DiPietro?
I'm not sure the decision is civil as going to Father Bill at St. Morris. It may be a diocese question. We'll find out from probably from Tom Manning or Lou Cloutier about
Okay.
who it is.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other selectmen that would like to comment? Does anyone have any information about surveyors that were in the area of the cemetery today? Anybody have any information on that? All right, we're going to see if we can find some more information about that. Very good. So there's no action needed there. So let's move on to 5B, the FY21 budget report. Can I have a motion to accept it? Mr. Armita?
Yep, I'll make the motion.
We're going to reconvene the selectmen's meeting at 8:16. And apologize, but that certainly was a learning experience. We were working on setting up a whole separate link, but we will not at this time. We'll continue with this link. So back to what we were talking about was we were on item number 5B, FY21 budget report.
Chief Dixon has.
Could I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes, Mr. Chief.
Not being a selectman, but a member of the public, if that happens in the future, can we immediately shut down? I think it's embarrassing to the public.
Yes,
Immediately
sir.
close the meeting and then reconvene it with phone calls.
It's harder than you think to try and recreate everybody that is on this meeting and to grab their phone numbers and to call them.
Mhm.
Understand?
It's hard
Yeah.
to then announce what we're doing next for a link. So that's what, when we were offline, what we were trying to figure out how to do that quickly, but we will work on this in the next few days in the Selectman's office, but thank you, Chief.
Something to talk about. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
So I need I believe I had a motion on the table to accept.
You do.
the-
It was from me, Pam.
Thank you, Mike. And do I have any comments on it?
Can we get a second before we?
I think Bob Moore seconded.
Bob had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
This is for the approval of all the, the items before us. Yep.
If there are no comments, then I would ask all in favor to accept the budget report as presented. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? It's passed unanimously. And we'll quickly move on to the budget transfers, which is item number C. Could I have a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mike. And a second?
Yes,
Thank you, Bob Moore.
I just
Are there
read
any,
it.
are there any comments on the budget transfers?
It
Moving
looks
right
like
along.
just a category transfer.
Yeah, it's
It is.
strictly seniors.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the only.
Senior and
there's only
social.
one- right, there's only one transfer.
Bob DiPietro, did you have any comments? Oh,
No,
very good. Then I would ask for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. It's passed unanimously. We have with us our fire chief on the ongoing business, the fire department suburban truck. And thank you, chief, for being present. And I would like to ask for a report from Selectman Aramita on the suburban truck.
Well, I can tell you that the vehicle has very low mileage. It has a few small problems that can be taken care of very easily. Needs tires and a few other things. But it's a vehicle that's in very good condition. As I understand, Bob Moore and our first selectman went down underneath it at the town garage to look at it. The vehicle looks as good on the bottom as it does on the top, and it runs extremely well. No leaks, no problems, any kind of major problems at all. A few little glitches with the electrical system, but they're working through that. I think it's going to be a vehicle that the department can make use of for many years to come. And it's way too valuable to us to lose. And it's really not worth anything to anyone else. I hate to say it, but it's full of holes because it's got antennas all over the roof and it's got boxes screwed in where seats should be and all things like that. So it really has no value to anyone except the fire department. And I think it's a vehicle that can serve the fire department for many years to come and hopefully serve us until the next vehicle to be replaced gets handed down, so to speak. And I can swear to you that the people in the fire department are taking fantastic care of our equipment. You know, I came from a fairly large fire department and I was extremely impressed with the people, their proficiency and the way they take care of the things that belong to the community. And this is no exception. You know, I would go back to, I guess Bob has had an opportunity to look at the bottom of it. I've only looked at it from a creeper.
Well, if I may, I'll pick up where you leave off.
Please.
Yeah, just for Adam, just for your benefit, back in November, when the board decided that we're going to maintain this thing, it was a gentleman's agreement that we would, until such time there were major issues that would render the vehicle not economically feasible to repair it. So when some issues came up, okay, it became a question. Well, maybe it's time we ought to just give it a quick check to see where we are. And we did that, and Jim as well. And we had Bruce Amundsen, who's our chief mechanic down there, who went over it tooth and nail. And we did know that there were some electronic issues that can easily be taken care of. But other than that, the vehicle, low miles, I think it's what, 71,000 miles or something
All right,
like
so
that.
it's only got about 24,000.
Or 24.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was reading, but anyhow, it's virtually no miles. And the underneath was like a 3-year-old vehicle. It was incredible, such good. And so at that point, I said, this is it. This vehicle has got a long life west, and we're not dealing with major issues. And we said with the department at the town, we would cover normal maintenance for this thing to keep it going as long as economically and mechanically and safe vehicle feasible. So I think that's where we are. And quite frankly, it's out of service and waiting for this, because the board had to make a decision on this based on our agreement. So after looking at this, the repairs and all that need to be done, including adding a new set of tires, was approximately about $3,000. It's well worth doing that, because you're going to extend this vehicle life for several years. Yeah, no doubt on that, because the tires, they don't wear out. They just get old and crack. That's how little miles they have. So with that,
Mr. Moore?
yes.
What is the usage of the vehicle? Like, what is the dedicated?
What's it used for?
Yeah.
I'll leave that to
Van vehicle,
Mike.
is it?
It had been our first response EMS vehicle. And since the new one arrived, that took its place a couple of months ago, it hasn't been used much in the last month or two, mostly because we were waiting to see whether we were going to put money into it or not. But I think that has made itself very clear that the vehicle is worth putting money into it. It was going to be used as a duty officer vehicle, but I had made a recommendation, and I brought it to the fire department and to the fire commission. And I'll give you a little history. Our fire chief works about 40 hours a week for us for the pittance of $13,000. And if you've ever sat in his car, as I have, you'll see that the vehicle you have to hold boxes in your lap of N95s and things like that, because his car is, for all intents and purposes, a utility vehicle for the fire department. And many volunteer fire departments within the eastern half of the state and in the entire state. I've gone to many meetings of the Connecticut fire chiefs, and the chief was the president of that last year, and see volunteer fire chiefs come in with the use of a town vehicle. I had the use of a town vehicle when I was fire chief, and mine was unlimited. I could take it on vacations if I wanted. And I put together a little petition, which I'd like to read if I could. And basically says that we, the undersigned, members of the Board of Fire, members of the Bolton Fire Department, and there's another one that says members of the Bolton Fire Commission, respectfully recommend that the Chevrolet Suburban, formerly designated as Service 134, be assigned to the Bolton Fire Chief. Vehicle to be used by the fire chief to respond to alarms, enhance department operations, and protect the citizens of our community. Use of said vehicle shall continue until such time as the vehicle becomes unsafe, fiscally unreasonable to maintain, or the town chooses to replace it. I think it has a great service there. The fire chief in this town is, for all intents and purposes, the default duty officer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. And he is the person that responds to the most calls of anyone in our department. Night, day, weekend, holiday, makes no difference. And having him have that vehicle to use on a daily basis for department operations and department business, and to use to respond to calls, gives us another vehicle with a full set of EMS gear, a full set of hazmat books and meters, and the fire department command board, where we keep accountability of our personnel on scenes of emergencies. And it would greatly enhance the abilities of the community. Right now, we have a first response EMS vehicle, and we have a 4-door pickup type vehicle with cabinet sides that many times is used by the duty officer and used when we have multiple accidents where we have to go out and the fire police maintain the roads and things. But having this vehicle available to the chief, and when he's not available, to the officer who's covering for him, would greatly enhance the ability of the community. I'm hoping that we get several years out of it with the use that would be given, because it won't be high traffic, high emergency use like it has been given, where unfortunately all fire trucks, people turn the key and there's no time to let them warm up. They kind of turn the key and step on the gas. We wouldn't do that with our own vehicles, but we have to do it with those because we don't have time to let them warm up. But I think used in that manner, we can prolong the life of that vehicle, hopefully until the next one is ready to retire. And we'll get some real good use out of a vehicle that was actually a donation to the fire department from Simonites when we first got it. So that is my recommendation to the board. I've got signatures from every member of the, all of the fire officers, with the exception of the chief. I didn't ask him to sign because he would be the one using the vehicle. All the members of the fire commission and 2/3 of the members of the fire department. And the only reason it's only 2/3 is because I was unable to reach them. Being volunteers, they're not always available. But it's pretty much a unanimous decision by those three groups that this would be an excellent use of this vehicle for the remaining life of it.
Thank you.
And Chief Dixon asked me, he says, you're going to be chief when I retire? And I told him, not for 3 times the money and a brand new SUV. We owe him a debt of thanks for the number of hours he puts in and the dedication he puts into this community. I was amazed to see. You drive by any time, day or night, you'll find his car sitting out there. So anyway,
Thank you. Chief Dixon, you're on camera. Would you like to address the issue?
I think Selectman Aramita is going out of his way. He's done an excellent job. I truly appreciate the detail or the survey of the truck by the town administrator and Selectman Mora and yourself, Selectman Sawyer. Thank you very much for looking at that.
Thank you.
May I, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
May I ask a question or two about the fiscal impact of this? I mean, first, do we now reimburse the fire chief for the use of his personal vehicle for fire department business in any way? Do we pay for mileage? Do we pay for gas?
Nothing.
No, I put it.
No, and I'm rather shocked to find that out. To be honest with you, I think most departments probably do that.
Right.
They do it, or they provide a vehicle for him, Adam, normally.
They do provide a vehicle.
No, we don't.
Most
Other towns do.
Most volunteer fire
Other
departments,
towns,
yeah. Most of them you'll find.
No, I understand that. I'm just asking what we've done up until now and what the.
I put on an average. I put on an average about 10,000 miles a year.
Yeah.
For the fire department.
Understood,
For the fire department.
and I don't think that's appropriate by any means.
One at a time. Thank you. I apologize. Adam, did you get your credit card?
Well, my other question is this. We, by maintaining the vehicle, we keep it on town insurance, I assume.
Right.
I'm just wondering what the cost of that is and whether we've provided insurance for the chief's use of his own personal vehicle to attend fires and so on.
No,
Again,
none of us get that, Adam. We get a small stipend, and mine covers pretty much my gas for the amount of use I use on my vehicle, but that's it. And I don't go anywhere near what the chief does. And
right.
I think it's, the man he deserves it. He puts more time in than I could ever. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I can't believe Bernice puts up with him doing it. So, but
it might be so. I don't disagree with anything you've said, Mike. I just want to make sure that we understand what the fiscal impact of that decision is, because the choice, as I understand it, is selling the vehicle because it otherwise doesn't have a specific need.
Right.
And returning that money to the town and then not covering the cost of maintaining it and not covering the cost of insuring it. Cost of insuring it is probably $1,500, $1,000 a year, I would think, just to add a vehicle. The cost of maintaining it is probably somewhat less than the cost of, per year. and the value of the vehicle in and of itself is probably, with used vehicles right now, as high as it's ever going to be.
Right.
With 24,000 on it.
Yeah, this vehicle, the maintenance of the vehicle would be absorbed under the fire department's budget, as the rest of the maintenance of vehicles is. The insurance, I can't speak to that because we're a fleet insurance type thing, so I don't know exactly what it would be. But the maintenance and everything would come under the fire department budget, and it's the vehicle, while it's got very low mileage, like I said, is full of holes. It's not a vehicle that anybody would want to drive because of, it's way more valuable to us than it would ever be to somebody else. So I recommended this because I think it's an appropriate use of the vehicle. And
I can answer one about his questions. I'll shut up.
I did examine the vehicle. I did look at the inside, and it is worked out with big panels of specialized equipment for communications. That if you tried to remove that and you tried to repair all the holes and you had to redo the paint job to take it down to a serviceable average private vehicle, would take a lot of doing. And currently, to replace this, it would be probably in the line of a $60,000 to $65,000 vehicle. It has a lot of life left in it, and at the present time, with the value, this has a specific value to the fire department right now. It's in great running order, with the exception of about $3,000 worth of work. Bob Moore?
Adam, just so you know that the insurance and maintenance is currently of that vehicle is currently in this year's operating budget. I mean, when we go on to looking at next year's, we'll have to factor that in as well. But right now, all that is a part of the current fire department's operating budget.
Thank you, Bob DiPietro.
Based on what I've heard, I would make a motion right now to spend $3,000, if that's where it comes to make the Suburban whole and keep it in service.
Yeah.
Would you consider, Bob Moore?
Would you consider a small amendment with that, Bob, if I could?
Of course.
And picking up from where you have it, just to be more specific, and the funds that come from an appropriate line item from the fire department's budget, and the repairs to be under the supervision of Bruce Amundsen, who is a town mechanic. And I think in that the vehicle is to continue to be utilized by the fire department as it deems most appropriate.
Is that acceptable to you, Bob DiPietro?
Yes, it does. Does that mean that we can include assigning that to Bruce full-time?
That the department can do that.
Okay.
I would hope that would be what the intent is, Bob.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do I have a second to the motion?
Well, I seconded it.
Bob seconded it, and
Bob made it and Bob seconded it.
We have a motion and it's been amended. Is there any other comments to the motion now that's before us?
no, just what I
I
said.
would hope that the intent. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Adam. Go ahead. Cheers.
I would hope that the intent of the motion stating that it to be used as the fire department sees fit is that it be used for fire department purposes that is actual town purposes as opposed to personal use or
also
other
amend
use.
my amendment.
DiPietro,
Thank
do you
Mr. Moore.
agree to the addition?
Yeah.
I'm great with this. As long as we all know that, this is probably where it's going to go. to the chief to use for response to alarms and fire department business, attendance to meetings that benefit the community and things like that. You know, it's not going to be used just for a pleasure vehicle to go on vacation with. It's a vehicle that he'll use for the betterment of our community.
Thank
That
you.
was the intent of my comment, Madam
Right,
Chair.
and that was
thank
the
you.
intent of our motions, and I don't think anyone has any other thoughts and I'm sure the chief wouldn't even think of doing that, so.
No, unlike
I'd like
me,
to
when I got my car in East Hartford, the mayor said, take it on vacation if you want. So I could go to Maine in
Hey,
mine.
Bruce, that ain't happening here.
No.
just so you know.
I haven't had
back to you.
vacation about 3 years, so we're all set on that.
Gentlemen, let's go back, please. Then I would like to call for the vote, please. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
And it is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief, for all that you do for the town of Bolton, and we're grateful to have you as our chief, sir.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Other ongoing business. Jim, do you have any?
I don't have any.
Okay, we're going to move right on then to, under new business, the AP detail list. I need a motion to approve the AP detail list.
I gotta find it. I printed this thing in and I lost track.
Oh, I've got it on my computer here.
Michael, would you like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion that we pay the bills as presented in the AP list.
Oh,
And
there.
do I have a second?
Yes, that one I did read.
Bob Mora, are you seconding
Yes,
the motion?
oh, Bob DiPietro, he's got his hand up, I think.
I have a question.
Okay, wait, so I have a motion and I do have it seconded. Bob DiPietro, go ahead.
The question I have, Jim, is the $9,000 for the HVAC evaluation, why is that not coming out of education budget?
I believe it is a capital expense that was planned on. And it was more money than the original quote because of the times that we are in. And John found money in another location to pay for that additional cost.
Does that help you, Bob?
To help you, if it fits good, fine. I just didn't know why the budget item that month couldn't be partly education. But if what Jim said is the adequate explanation, I'm good with it. I trust Jim.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions on the detail list? All right, then let's call for a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And pass unanimously. Let's consider an act upon, one quick commercial here that in 2 weeks, the Board of Selectmen will have a special meeting to approve the next AP list, and it'll be a very short 5-10 minute meeting. So we will set a date and get back to you.
It'll be a Tuesday. It'll be, 2 weeks from today. But we'll try to figure out that last time we were able to do it during the day, which worked out great, I think, for everybody. So if we can, we'll try to do the same. So we'll be reaching out in the near future.
Adam, we're conscious of your schedule, sir, during the daytime. And if we can work around your schedule, we will try to in 2 weeks on a Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. I do know that I have 2 court matters that day, but I'll figure it out.
Two in one day, lucky guy.
Well, if we can get you the information ahead of time, and we can get you the, and if you have questions prior, we will try and get them answered for you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're moving on to B, considering and acting upon the approval of the relay race, the Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut relay race. It's been going on for many years, and they've always come forward to the board for approval, which has been given. they have insurance, all those, they're professionals at doing this. So at this time, I would accept a motion that we approve the 2022 Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut relay. May I have a
Motion to
motion? Mike Aramita, and a second by Bob Moore. Are there any questions?
Just one comment on that race. We are contacted annually on that from the race gentleman, where's he, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Talk about EMS and also about state police presence, for crossing at different roads. And both the fire department and the state police, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, have basically said, let them do the race. They're just crossing a road as regular, people in town and out of towners walk up and down the trail. So just FYI, the fire department and state police are not actively participating. If a call comes in, we will get down there and take care of business as we do with 911 or 911 calls. So, yep.
Great.
That's accurate, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Then I would call for a vote then, please. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And it passes unanimously. Skipping down to the first Selectmen's report on COVID. We have had since the December 30th to today, there's been an increase of 21 cases in Bolton on the town side that we know of. Superintendent Heck reported into me and reported to the families that there have been 36, however, coming through the schools. One of the things we do know that the cases are now hard to monitor because of home testing. We don't know how many more there are than that. If anecdotally, my experience is anything to compare to what's actually happening out there, it's higher than that. But however, what I've heard has been people are ill, like they have a cold or a hard cold. But those that are in the hospitals, from what I can find out on the news reporting, those in the hospitals are those that are the numbers are responsive to those that are unvaccinated. So I'd like to move on because we can certainly find the reports through the town and through the state. Moving on, we know that Bolton was given a far lower number of the test kits than we had anticipated, and I'd like to applaud the town staff who jumped in on vacation time, on holiday time, to try and respond back and forth with the governor's office in trying to put in place to dispose test kits to our residents and to those in town that needed them. And we thought there would be a lot more when we thought there were going to be 2 million of them given to the state, and only 460,000 did come. We were able to get 360, but we got a plethora of masks, the N95 masks to go with it. So the town tried to have a delivery date of last Friday, and the masks did not come in, and as you all know, and we were able to then put together a plan for Monday, and we looked at all the locations in town to find one that was open because it was a Monday. Many of the places in town where we perhaps would have had it were occupied. So they came up with the town came up with the idea, thank you, Jim, to use Herrick Park. I'm sorry, I apologize, to use Indian Notch Park this time. And we were pleased to have our volunteer that helped us out as well, Brent Mayerson, as well as Selectman Mora and 3 staff people who braved the cold. What we did find was that they went very quickly. We were supposed to have it from 4 to 6. We did open the gates to start passing them out at 4:15 because there were so many people in line ready to go. And by 4:30, we had blasted right through 310 of them. The rest had been passed out to other 30 given to the schools, some given to the social services and some given to our first responders. I have received now 4 different comments, how well organized it was, because they were passed out 2 cars at a time coming through. So the cars move right along. And we also offered hand sanitizers that had been sitting at town hall. So we thought that'd be a great place to give those out. We had a very cheerful group working, and we found people who are very respectful, people who are very appreciative, and they're asking when they're going to be more. So we did have a number of people who came through and just received masks and hand sanitizers if they wanted it, because we had run out. And they look for people, those people were asking to please put it out there when there were going to be more. Are there any questions from the Board of Selectmen regarding that? We are hoping to get more Thursday, hoping. We're not sure. Maybe, could be.
The email we got was pretty cryptic. But we think it said if we put in a WebEOC request today, we would potentially be able to pick up some additional tests and masks if we needed them on Thursday.
So it's potential, possibly, could be. We don't know how many, but we're going to do it.
They said maybe, and that's final.
Michael, very clear. Thank you.
So we've done what we could do at this point to hopefully gain access to some additional tests.
So I will jump then down to one other piece. We were serviced by our new resident state trooper, John Santiago, last night, and he was well received by people. He was very personable. He was very made for a wonderful community moment. And he has replaced Brian Contenta, our trooper that we have been so happy to have had in our service for 8 years. He has been assigned to the State Police Range out in Simsbury, and has on the 3rd request, they had asked him 2 other times, that he did agree to take the position. So we're pleased as a temporary replacement at this time to have John Santiago. So please be sure to give him a warm welcome when you do meet him. Let's go to the Jim Rupert's monthly report, sir.
So we'll go through it quickly. I think it's important for the selectmen to know that, you know, the holiday gathering that you all approved this year was extraordinarily well received by the staff. They really, I know some of you have individually received some feedback, but the staff overwhelmingly really truly appreciated that gathering. You know, the fact that they didn't have to cook, they didn't have to, you know, set the hall up, they didn't have to stay and clean up afterward. They truly did appreciate it, and I wanted to just pass those sentiments along as part of my report. We are moving forward with the paperwork for HGAC, which is a buying consortium, so that we can work through that group to purchase the ET. I keep providing the chief with updates on where we are with that. And I know that the chief and his group have worked with their contacts in order to get the changes that they needed to get affected, to make some things options in the request for the quote and the purchase. We're also moving forward with the purchase of the brush truck and the components. I had a quick conversation with Mike Aramita today, and it looks like the truck will come in sooner than we had originally anticipated. And one of the buying consortiums that we're going to be purchasing pieces from, it's actually like 25% cheaper purchasing that from them than it would be if we were purchasing it through some other means. As you've heard, we inspected Service 134, and I just want to echo the comments. You know, there was not one drip of oil, not one drip of transmission fluid, and that vehicle has clearly been well taken care of. And I think that the actions that were taken by the Board of Selectmen this evening were absolutely appropriate and on point with the things that we've discussed in the past. We are currently in the midst of working on the budget. On the 11th, you will have your first budget meeting, which will be the presentation of the budget by the Buildings and Grounds Group, as well as the Senior Center. We will do our best to get those documents out a few days in advance so that you have the opportunity to look at them. So we're continuing to work on that. We talked about the COVID commodities pickup and distribution. We've had a couple of meetings now with Con OSHA. We should have some further information from them before the next regular meeting. I met with Willie Waste regarding meeting the new owners. It's under new ownership. And we're going to be looking at some changes in tipping fees when the current contract expires. So we've started having those conversations, but we will work on them again here in the near future. The final charter had its distribution through the town clerk to the state and to the Connecticut Law Office. That has been posted on the town's website. And again, I would just, thank the group that worked on that. It was a tremendous job that was very well done. And the two attorneys that worked on compiling it worked very hard to get that complete. So, so it is out there now as a public document. We had the first meeting of the temporary building commission. Some of the Board of Selectmen participated in that. They have their second meeting scheduled, I believe, for next week. And that will be at the fire station, as I recall, so that they can actually look at the building that they're talking about. I guess I skipped completing the salary survey. We participate in a salary survey through the Capital Region Council of Governments. We did that. It requires us to put a bunch of information in so that we also can go back and look and find out what average salaries are. In fact, this Board of Selectmen did that last year, looking at changing some salaries for a couple of individuals that were out of line, and they used that as a tool to help them gauge where that should be. We have a quote for some welcome signs, which we'll be discussing at the Facilities and Public Safety meeting, and I think that's tomorrow. We have executed the lease agreements with Pajoli and Pease for the farmlands. We've gotten information out to residents regarding bulk and scrap metal pickup. We've had an initial meeting regarding Route 6 safety, as well as the intersections of Route 6 and 44. We have more meetings coming up. We're going to try to make some progress on that. And we are working on a LOTSIP grant application, which would potentially, if we're approved for that application, would allow us to do some improvements and create a parking lot and dry hydrant over on Route 6 between Bolton Collision and Munson's to access the town-owned land over there. And the other thing I would say is I'm working with the town engineers. I know this isn't on the report, but I'm working with the town engineers so that there's a particular grant that may come out in the near future with all of this infrastructure money. And we wanted to be ready to capitalize on that for the replacement of the culverts under Lyman Road. And we're in the final throes of finishing the paperwork. So if that grant process opens up, we can get an application in very quickly. I will tell you that it will take some action by the Board of Selectmen because it's only a 50% matching grant. And the estimated cost of construction right now is around $1,300,000. So we would have to come up with about 50% of that. And I know it's one of those items that's been in our capital plan. And I'm not quite sure where it is on the list, but it needs to be moving up based on the current condition of that culvert. Any questions?
Jim, yes, the only question I have does not pertain to any of those things you just
Okay,
covered.
that's fine.
But with Bruce here and you, I wanted to know if what's the story with Anthony Road?
So that's not in my monthly report, but we're working on that. We actually had a meeting recently, which included Mike Aramita as deputy fire chief and Chief Dixon, myself, the town attorney, Lance
Wait,
Demick. We also had, Pam was here and the town engineer. And
Town attorney?
yeah, the town attorney also joined us via Zoom. And so we're still challenged to get fire trucks on the opposite side of the bridge. And fire department has done everything they can to create a plan. And I started actually today working on drafting a letter to the residents over there, letting them know what our challenges are. And we're going to try to work with those residents, with the town attorney and others to try to create a plan so that we can potentially at some point resolve this issue. The problem, Bob, is that the bridge is not engineered and certified to carry a certain load. We know that the bridge beams that were used to create the bridge are certainly strong enough to hold the load of a fire truck, but this was done quickly. It was done as a temporary bridge, and it was done basically using an empirical design based on the experience of the installer. Normally, if you're building a bridge like this, you would do test borings, you would do drainage calculations for the entire drainage basin to determine the flow and velocity of water going through there. It's a very complicated and expensive process. And, based on the fact that we can't get a load rating on the bridge, from our current, town engineering staff, without having that background data, they're unable to determine that the bridge is in fact safe to take a fully loaded fire truck across. So even though, they have access to their homes, they can get, oil service deliveries, propane deliveries, they can get their vehicles back and forth. The garbage truck has decided that it's safe enough for them to go back and forth on. We're not in a position to say that, it's absolutely safe enough to take a fire truck off over. So those remain, challenges that we're trying to resolve. Adam?
Jim, is it possible, is there an engineering service that could obtain a load rating at the resident's expense, or perhaps some kind of shared cost?
So that's one of the things.
Somebody who could do a test on the bridge?
That's one of the questions that we're going to pose to those residents. Because our engineers, without having any background information, like I said, with test borings, without the calculations of the water flow and all of those things, they are not willing to give us a load rating, because that's if we could have spent a couple $1,000s for the town engineer to give us a load rating, I think we all would have been very happy to do that. But without the data, their professional, opinion is that they can't do it in good conscience. So we want to take this back to residents and say, did you have an engineer that was involved in this that we weren't aware of? Do you have somebody in mind that might be able to provide, that information? And I think, one of the things that we agreed on in the meeting is that, between our town engineer and our highway foreman, we would do some, once we gain access and feel like we can go over this, with town vehicles, we'll at least take a look at it every couple of years or after large storms, just to ensure that nothing shifted or changed. so that we can be reassured that when we have to cross that bridge, you know, if in fact we can get it certified safe for the fire truck to cross, that it remains that way.
All right, if I could, because it is now 9 o'clock, I would like to ask if you have further questions, if you could reach out to Jim personally on this issue, and we can revisit it at our next meeting if you would like, Adam. And we can talk about it. Thank you. Can I then please ask that we go back to the approval of the minutes and start with the September 29th minutes. And I would like to ask, I would say that I will be abstaining because I was not in attendance at that meeting. Could I have someone make a motion to approve the minutes for September 29th?
There you go. I did read it, and as far as I can recall, it is correct. So I move the acceptance of that.
And I'll second that.
Bob Moore and Bob DiPietro, thank you. Are there any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously.
No, I abstain.
This is a couple
So
of
do you.
abstentions.
Well, you said you
That's
were
a
gonna
good point.
abstain and Adam's gonna abstain.
I apologize after 9 o'clock. You guys are good to back me
Good
up.
job.
3 yeses, 2 abstain. Both eyes open now. We're going to move on to 3B, and that is for the regular meeting of December 7th at 7 p.m. It was a virtual meeting. Do I have a motion? Well, let's do a review first then, if I may. I did find some, and had some comments. The first one was on page 4. And it refers to 6, and then it says B, it says properties and facilities report. And then it says no current reports. And then right after it says, DiPietro would like this committee to come to the Board of Selectmen so that the committee charge can be discussed. I believe that needs to be clarified.
Yes.
And that would be the temporary public building commission, page 4.
Yep.
All right, so are we in agreement that would be a positive change that will add the temporary public building commission as to the committee of which Bob was speaking?
Yes.
Thank
Correct.
you. Then on page 9, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The paragraph second from the bottom that begins Sawyer. I'm sorry, just before that, the paragraph that begins Rupert, that says this happens to some degree when issues arise at a cemetery. At the end of that paragraph, it says building and grounds make sense. I believe they meant for it to say properties and facility subcommittee makes sense in talking about the cemetery.
And what's the name of that committee again? I'm sorry, properties and,
No, I think it's accurate.
It is accurate because
Yvonne, never mind, take that back.
And it's accurate because we were talking about the department that's been tasked, and that's buildings and grounds.
it's building and grounds who they thought would do
Committee
it.
that's been tasked with oversight
Right.
Thank you.
is different.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then the last thing that I did see was on page 11. Number 12, it says consider an act on the interim administrator officers agreement. Should there be a clarification at that point, what that agreement was that we voted on? It was a unanimous vote when we came out of committee, it came out of executive session. Do I have any comments?
I was not because of the, right, so yeah,
No, we,
All right, so Yvonne, we'll come back to you and we'll get you the wording for that.
great.
And then on number 13, it was moved by Maura and it was seconded by DiPietro I believe, to adjourn at 10:05.
All right, Thank
So
you.
we're going to postpone the vote on 3B until the next meeting, and we'll give you some wording for that last portion. Portion, section 12.
got it.
Thank you. Is there anything else that any member would like to address on now 3C? This was the, for those that are listening in, this was the special meeting of the minutes for the special meeting, December 21. And it was to approve the AP report as presented. Everybody in concurrence, then I would like to ask a motion to accept the special meeting minutes for December 21st.
Move.
Thank you, Bob DiPietro. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob Mora? Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Mike, you said aye, right?
Yep.
Very good, then it passed unanimously. We got C done. As far as I have on my agenda, I think we've covered everything. Is there anything we've missed, Mr. Administrator?
I think you have it.
Thank you. Hey,
I move-
everybody.
Move we adjourn.
Very good. One more thing before we go, if I could, because I've been in contact with Mr. Teller, if we could quickly set up a meeting for the next special meeting for the AP. Would 9 o'clock, 2 weeks from today, would 9 a.m. work for people?
What's the date?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna ask
The
me.
18th.
18th.
It's the 18th.
Yeah, no, I'm still in Phoenix.
Can you, that would be at 5 a.m. for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So let's
You
see.
can, I mean,
Mr.
you can
Teller-
do that without my vote, you know.
Would you like to pass on that then, Mr. Moore, because you're away out of
We
state?
we only need a majority.
And we
You
don't
need
need
a majority. I just need 3 people.
All right, so let's say 9 a.m. on the 18th. Is that good for the rest of the board?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, we have nods going on. Oh, excellent. So we have 9 o'clock on the 18th for the next special meeting. It'll be
Thank you.
posted with time. With time. Thank you. And thank you all for your time tonight. Could I have a
So now
motion to
we can-
adjourn?
Yeah, I so moved and the other Bob second.
Bob and Bob, all in favor? Aye.
All right.
Bob.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.
All right.
Aye.